Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to do reverse percentages. So all that means is that you're trying to find the original amount after it's been increased or decreased by a certain percentage. Okay, there's two ways I'm going to show you. One of them is using our decimal multipliers, which you should have seen in all my other percentages videos. And the other one's using what we call the unitary method. So I'll show you both, and well, pick one, or by all means, if you can't do a question with one of the methods, you've also got another one up your sleeve. So I'm going to start off with the decimal multiplier one for this first example. So in a sale, items are reduced by 20%. A TV cost £220 in a sale. What was its normal price? Now, if you've seen my increasing and decreasing videos, this will be familiar. So if you haven't, definitely give that a look. So if I want to decrease an amount by 20%, I start off with 100%. I take away 20%. And that gives me 80%. And as a decimal, that would be 0.8. Okay, so that's my decimal multiplier. So if I had my normal price, I'm going to call it X because that's an unknown value. I don't know what it cost at the start. I'll call it X. So I'll take X and I would times it by 0.8 to decrease it by 20%. Okay, I'd take my amount, I'd times it by 0.8, and then I would get what the reduced cost is. Now in this particular question, we know what that is. It's 220. Okay, so I'll have my normal cost of the TV. I'll times it by 0.8, and then it would decrease it by 20% to 220. So all I've done here is formed an equation, and then I would just rearrange it. If I'm timesing by 0.8, I do the opposite, so I divide by 0.8. Don't forget both sides. So X, or the normal amount, would be 220 divided by 0.8. So definitely going to be a calculated job here. So 220 divided by 0.8, £275. Was the cost of the TV beforehand. Does it make sense? Well, 275, decrease it by 20%. So you can always check this. So find 20%. So 20% times by 275 is 55. So if I take 55 away from 275, does it work? 275 minus the 55, yeah, I get back to 220. So always check your answers. Does it make sense? Okay, so that's using decimal multipliers. The other way you can do it is using what we call unitary method. The start is still the same. I've got 100%. If I take away 20%, I'm left with 80%. So we know that 80% equals £220. Because that's the value of the TV in the sale. So this equals 80%. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out what 1% is, because once I know what 1% is, I can then find out anything. So how do I go from 80 to 1%? Well, if you divide it by itself, anything divided by itself gives you 1. So 80 divided by 80 will give me 1. I'm going to do the same thing over this side to keep it balanced, or to keep it equal. So 220 divided by 80, and I'm going to have 2.75, which should keep my pound sign there. So 1% is £2.75. I don't know what 1% is. I want to get back to the original amount, and the original amount is 100%. So to go from 1 to 100, I times by 100. So I do the same thing here, and I times by 100. So 2.75 times by 100. Don't need a calculator for that, 275. So as you can see, I get the same answer either way. As I say, it doesn't matter which method you use, as long as you show clear working of how you do it, you'll get the marks, no worries. Let's have a look at the little one then. So Ben got 68% on a test. If he got 170 marks, what was the test out of? So 68% is what he got. So what's 68% as a decimal? So 68% as a decimal is 0.68. Okay, so what was the test out of? Again, I don't know, so let's call it x. It's the unknown. That's what the test is out of. So I would do x times by my multiplier of 0.68, because that will tell me what 68% is, and we know what 68% is. It's 170 marks. Again, I've formed my equation. I'm going to rearrange it. Times them by 0.68, so I need to do the opposite and divide by 0.68, both sides. And therefore, let's have a quick butchers. 170 divided by 0.68, 250. So the test is out of 250. And again, you can check it by working out 68% of 250 and checking it's 170. Using the unitary method, well, we know he's got 68%. And we know that equals 170 marks. Okay, and again, I'm just going to find out what 1% is. So to do that, I divide by itself. So I divide by 68, and I do the same thing over here. Okay, so 170 divided by 68 is 2.5 marks. And then obviously I don't want 1%, I want to get to 100% to work out what it's out of in total. So I times by 100, and I do the same thing here, times by 100, which will obviously be 250 marks. Okay, so again, two different ways, whichever way you prefer, use it. I've got one last example, guys, of when we increase and decrease at the same time. So just bear with me a second while I grab that sheet out. Here we go. So a new toy has just been released. The toy went up in value by 16%, so it's increased by 16% in the first year, and during the second year it fell, so decreased by 9%. It now costs £131.95. How much did it cost at the start? So there's two things going on here. It's increasing by 16% and it's decreasing by 9%. So again, I'm going to show you both ways, starting with the decimal multiplier. So the first thing I'm going to do is work out the decimal multiplier for increasing by 16%. So 100% plus 16% is 116%. And then what is the decimal? I'll convert that to a decimal, 1.16. The next one is a decrease of 9%. So 100% minus 9% gives me 91%. What's that as a decimal? 0.91. So what you can do now is work out your overall decimal multiplier. So all I do by that is I just times these two together. So 1.16 times 0.91. If I times them together, I'm going to get my overall multiplier, which is 1.0556. Okay, so how does that help me? Well, if I knew that the toy, let's call it X, that's the value of the toy at the start. If I times it by my multiplier, which I just worked out, that would be increasing it by 16% and decreasing it by 9%, and I know the value I would have at the end of that would be 131.95. And again, I just rearrange it by dividing both sides by 1.0556. And then we see what the toy cost at the start of the year. So £131.95 divided by 1.0556, 125. Okay, so that's the decimal multiplier way. And now let's have a look at the unitary way. So this one's a little bit longer, but it's not a problem. So again, we're going to go backwards now. So if I had 100% and take away 9%, I get 91%. So 91% equals this amount here, £131.95. Exactly the same process. I'm going to find out what 1% is worth by dividing by 91. So let's do that. 131.95 divided by 91 gives me 1.45, but I want to know what it is at 100%. So I times by 100 times by 100, which will give me 145. So that's reversing the year. So after the first year, this is what it's going to be, £145. So now I need to go backwards and get rid of that 16%. So again, if I had a toy and it went up in value by 16%, exactly the same over here, 100% plus 16% is 116%. So the new one, so I go backwards one more year, is saying 116% equals 145. Okay, and obviously exactly the same thing, find out what 1% is worth by dividing by itself. So divide by 116. Divide by 116. What do we get if we do that? 1.25. And obviously we want to know what it was at the very beginning, which was 100%. So I times by 100 times by 100, which is 125. Okay, pounds. So again, either way, absolutely fine. This one, just working your way backwards. This one, working out the overall multiplier and then putting it into your equation again. So hopefully that helps with reverse percentages, guys. Thanks for watching. Hi guys, this video is to do with reverse percentages, but what happens if it's more than 1 year? So this is a video that's just been requested, so hopefully this helps clarify how to do that. So definitely watch the first reverse percentages video that I did, and with this particular one it'll also be handy if you have a look at the compound interest and depreciation video. So both those two are definitely ones to watch before having a look at this. So assuming you've done that, let's get started. In this first example, I invest some money into a savings account and it earns 4% compound interest. After 2 years, I have £3,785.60. How much did I invest at the start? So I'm going to show you two ways to do this. First of all, I'm going to show you how to do it via compound interest and go backwards that way. And the second one I'm going to show you is to do it with like the reverse percentages by the similar way as what we've done in the part 1. So let's go with compound interest first. So if I work out my decimal multiplier, which would be the first step to do, I start off with 100%. We are increasing by 4%. Which gives me 104%. What's that as a decimal? It's 1.04. Okay, so that would be my decimal multiplier to increase the amount by 4%, just like I would do with compound interest. Now I don't know my starting amount, so I'm just going to make it up and call it X. It can be any letter, just a letter to represent my starting value. And I would times that by 1.04 to increase it by 4%. But if I do it for 2 years, if you remember from the compound interest video, we would do it to the power of 2, and that would equal my amount, which we know is £3,785.60. Okay? All you need to do from this point is just rearrange the equation. So I want to get X on its own, so I'll want to get rid of this 1.04 squared, so do the opposite and divide by it. So I'm going to divide both sides by 1.04 squared. Okay, and then if you do that, you'll have £3,785.60 divided by 1.04 squared. And if you bung that into your calculator, it will come out the answer of 3,500. Okay, so that's one way to do it. I'm now going to do it a slightly different way, very similar to the method we saw in the first reverse percentages way. So the first step is the same. I go, okay, I've got 100% plus 4%, I have 104%. So I say, okay, 104% is equal to £3,785.60. But I want to go back to 100%. But to do that, we find out what 1% is. And we do that by dividing by 104, but make sure you do it to both sides, like so. And if you use a calculator and do that, you will have 36.4, and then you can go 100%. So we times by 100 times by 100, which of course will give us 3,640. Now obviously that will only go back 1 year. We need to go back 2 years. So all I do is I do exactly the same thing again, and I say, okay, well 104% equals my new amount, which is 3,640. I find out what 1% is again by dividing by 104, both sides. And if you use a calculator again, you'll have that to be 35. And then you can get your 100% by timesing by 100, both sides. And you'll have the same answer of 3,500. So you can still use that method, you'll just have to do it twice if it's for 2 years. Okay? Or you can do it the compound interest way. Both ways will get you full marks. So that's an increasing, that's a compound interest one. Let's just have a very quick look at a depreciation one, just to show you the slight difference you have there. So, let's bear with me a second. So here's another one. I'm going to show you both ways again. So this time I've got a car, it's depreciating in value by 5% each year, and I want to know what it'll be, after 3 years, it'll be worth £5,144.25, but I want to know how much it was worth at the start. So this is a slightly different one because we're doing it for 3 years now. So let's start off with the compound interest way of doing it, or this time compound depreciation. And I start off with my 100%. And if it depreciates by 5%, depreciate means we take away. So take away 5%, which leaves me with 95%. And again, I want the decimal, so I divide it by 100 and I have my 0.95. So exactly the same as before. I don't know the starting amount, so I'm just going to call it X, or any letter of your choice. And I will times it by my decimal multiplier, which is 0.95. And because it's for 3 years, it would always be to the power of 3. And we know that after 3 years, it's going to equal £5,144.25. And just like before, just going to rearrange it. So I'm going to get rid of this times by 0.95 to the power of 3 by dividing. But don't forget to do it to both sides. So we will end up with £5,144.25, all divided by 0.95 to the power of 3. Bung that in your calculator, and now it should come out with the answer of £6,000. Okay, so that's that way of doing it. And going back to the reverse percentages way of the original way that I talked about in the other video, again, we know that 95% equals this amount, £5,144.25, and we want to go back to 100%, so we work out what 1% is by dividing by 95. Don't forget to do it to both sides. And if you do that, you'll have 54.15, and then you can get your 100%, by timesing it by 100, which will leave you with 5,415. Now, that will only take you back 1 year. We need to go back 3 years, so I'm going to have to go again. So we just say, right, 95% is equal to my new amount. I'm going to find out what 1% is. Exactly the same thing. Divide by 95. Divide by 95. That comes out at 57. Then find out what 100% is by timesing by 100. So 5,700. That's 2 years. As I said, we need 3 years. So one more time. So 95% equals my new amount. Find out what 1% is by doing the same thing. Divide by 95. And that will have 60 using a calculator. Then find out what 100% is by timesing both sides by 100. And again, you'll have 6,000 as your final answer. So there's 2 different ways you can do it. Obviously, the more years you do it, this way will be a little bit quicker. But this way you only learn one particular method. You might have to do it a few times. End of the day, it's entirely up to you, but that's 2 different ways you can do it if it's more than 1 year. So hopefully that helps. Thanks for watching.